let's see, we have a question from Gail who would like to know, as you're probably practicing several hours a day, how do you keep your muscles from getting stiff with all that sitting?
Oh, okay. I have a secret, which is the one thing I have not given up at all during this pandemic is my trainer. I see her more often now because I never have to not see her because I have another appointment. I have no excuses. And I worked out a whole like series of resistance bands in my guest bedroom. Um, and yeah, I do a lot of stretches. I do certain mobility exercises, just things to keep moving. I actually started a little series about a year ago with my trainer called Beyond the Fingers, which is aimed primarily at pianists, but it's really applicable to anybody who sits in front of a computer, for example, all day long, because it's a really similar postural thing. And it has to do with the kind of exercises that I do between practices. I will not just sit and play for 2 hours straight. I will get up
Yeah.
every 40, 45 minutes or whatever, and I have certain very specific go-to exercises to keep everything moving. And actually, despite the lack of walking, I feel pretty good.
That's amazing. I think it's so important also because I feel like, well, my teacher would always say that musicians are the Olympians of the of the small muscles. And I think when you think of yourself that way and, the physical demands of it, especially for something like piano, I think, in terms of having a long and comfortable physically career, it's like important to not neglect those things.
It's also an intellectual exercise because these Chopin etudes, the more every time I come back to them, and especially now teaching them, I am thinking about, if your hand's like that versus like that or like that, like these are the tiniest little differences. And what is Chopin teaching us about how good that is for your hand? It's good to have good teachers, so it's nice to learn
Yeah.
from him.
Yeah. I couldn't ask for a better teacher. So we're getting sort of close to our end time, but I want to fit in just a couple more questions that we got here. Our illustrious bumblebee, Meredith Crawford, would like to know if you could attend any live concert right now, what pieces would you want to hear performed?
Ooh, wow, Meredith, terrific question. I'm pretty sure it's the Bartok Viola Concerto, and I know
I
who
was
the
going to say the
soloist. I
Schnicke
want.
Viola Concerto.
But in all seriousness, although I would love that too, but in all seriousness, I think something enormous and orchestral is what I would want to hear. I think I think I miss that feeling of so many musicians really coming together and playing together, as the word symphony implies.
Yeah. And something that's really very impossible right now and sort of makes you really appreciate when we can get back to doing that. Um, Dean wants to know if you encourage your own students to improvise ornamentations into their public performances.
I do, but boy, they're scared. I think that's part of what motivated me in this recording, especially of this little sonata that so many students will listen to do it, like to just get it in their ears young that it's an acceptable
Yeah.
thing to do. Because I don't know, when you ornament really beautifully. You and I have played Bach together, and you've done some lovely things. Is that something that you grew up doing?
No, not necessarily. I think it was one of those things that actually my teacher, Paula Robeson, um, very much encouraged us to do. And that was already, I was in my 20s at that point. And so at first it was like, you think of Bach as sort of this like up there and we're down here. It's like, who am I to mess with what he put on the page? But I think she really helped sort of open my ears and eyes to the possibilities and how you can really, first of all, that's what it was meant to do. And that you can really add to the music and sort of engage with it in a more intimate way when you're thinking about those sorts of decisions.
Yeah, I think it's once you start doing it, it is a little bit addictive.
Yeah. Okay, final question. And if we didn't get to your question, we will try to find a way to get them answered in some format or another. And I should say that we got a lot of great questions for me, which I'm very flattered about. But because I really wanted to be able to talk with Orli and feature her, I will make a separate video at some point in the next couple weeks where I can answer some of those things. But let's see. Amira wants to know if you ever practice with colleagues via Zoom or in any sort of online format.
So actually, it's a very apropos question. I just made my first recording with somebody who is not here. My good friend Shai Wasner, who a fellow pianist. Um, I mentioned early on Kaufman Music Center, where we do the Backyard. They're having their big sort of fundraiser in about a week and a half, and we are both involved in the center, and we have kids who are students there. So we decided to record the first Brahms Hungarian dance for four hands, but two pianos on two separate sides of Manhattan.
Wow.
And that was so much fun. Like I really didn't understand how much I was missing making music with somebody else until I was sitting there in this room right here, playing with the recording that he had just made. The problem is you can't do it on Zoom. There's just enough latency that it's just not going to be together. So it has to be recorded. But the feeling of reacting to his rubato was like this visceral thing that grew in me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And one of those things that, I mean, not that we don't appreciate it when we're going about our normal lives doing it, but it's like, it just really heightens how special that is when you can't do it, or then when you finally get to do it in some capacity.
It's again, it all goes back to that it's about communication. So Ben, being with you sort of live like this and being able to have a back and forth that is real and is really happening, even if it's on a screen, it's very special. You're
Yeah,
such a
I
special
agree.
person. I love doing this with you.
Oh, same. And I just wanted to say, like, literally the biggest thank you to you. This is like just been a dream way to spend an hour. And, I hope that everyone has had as much fun as I had. I can't imagine how you couldn't with someone like Orly as a friend to chat with.